Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to be reading some crazy Reddit stories while I play around in my Minecraft realm with a few of my friends. Today, we are going to actually go into the Nether, try to find a bastion, as well as maybe a castle, so that we can get some blaze rods, and that way we can get a little bit closer to getting to the end. Anyways, if you have a story that you guys want me to read, whether it's a story of your own or a story that you found online that you would want me to read that you find interesting, send it to the email in the description. Anyways, guys, I'll make this intro quick. I appreciate you guys sticking around and watching my content. You guys are the best. And let's go ahead and get into our first story. Our first story is titled Saw a Ghost on the Way Home from Work. It was maybe 1 a.m. I got off the train after working a long shift. I started walking back to my place. The air was super heavy and sticky. That gross, humid summer heat. So, I was just trying to hurry up and get home. I noticed this person walking on the opposite side of the street, same direction as I was walking, maybe 2 blocks ahead. They were wearing a dark jacket, which I thought was a little weird for July. Honestly, I didn't think twice about it. It's the city. You see people walking late all the time and crazy get ups, right? So, I keep walking. I'm catching up to them a little bit, but we're still on opposite sides of the street. We get near an old hardware store where there's a bright street lamp. The figure walks right under it. I just happen to look over, and man, I don't even know how to explain it. They didn't turn a corner, they didn't duck into a doorway. While they were walking, and they just started getting transparent, like dissolving. Within 2 seconds, they turned into this faint gray smudge, and then they were just gone. The street lamp was shining down on a completely empty sidewalk. I literally stopped in my tracks. My heart was pounding out of my chest. The air suddenly felt ice cold. Then, nothing. No cars, no cicadas, nothing. Just an empty sidewalk where a guy was walking a second before. I didn't even check to see what happened. I just booked it back to my building, locked the door, and left every light on all night. I know what I saw. It wasn't a shadow, it was a person, and then disappeared. This happened about a week ago when we had that heat wave in New York. I haven't taken that route home since. Now I just end up going on the other side of the train station and walking an extra block to my house. That story is now over. So, that is a pretty crazy story. I cannot imagine being in the OP shoes and seeing someone walking home, they go under their street light, and then boom, they're gone. I don't know how I would react. I would probably react the same way they did. Book it home, leave all the lights on that night. Anyways, let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Let's go ahead and jump into our next story. Our next story is I was excited to date my gym crush until he opened his mouth. My now ex gym crush, Fred, 28 male, asked me out about a week ago. We followed each other on Instagram, and I discovered that he had a son. I, 28 female, was anxious about dating a dad, but he seemed very nice in our texts, so I decided to go on the first date and know more about him as a person. I didn't like him at all. I'll tell you why with just a few examples. He arrived 15 minutes late to our first date and laughed, admitting that 10 minutes before our scheduled meeting time, he was still in bed. He blamed his roommate for it. He would ignore what I said and pivot the conversation back to what he was saying, slash, talk about himself. He hasn't seen his 11-year-old son in 5 months. The boy lives in another city with his mother, and Fred does not speak to her at all. He admitted he only talks to his son every now and then. Later, I asked if he'd like more children someday, because I want children myself. He said that he doesn't really like anything related to children. He claimed his previous gyms always had bad vibes because some people would stare at him while he trained. Instead of traditional exercises, he does more explosive ones. I said, people sometimes stare because they admire you. And he went, nah. I asked about whether he got along with the people in his functional training class. He said yes, added that it's mostly women, and then went on a rant about how guys avoid the class because training with women makes them feel less masculine. Nobody told him this, it's his theory. He finished with, I am better than them anyway. I don't care. What? I mentioned that I had been bullied when I was 12. He said, but why? There had to be something about you that they didn't like. I asked what it even mattered anyway, since kids bully others for random reasons. He bragged that he never needed to study English, the language, because he learned it all through music, and that gave him the best grades in his class. He even said that he couldn't understand why his university classmates struggled to read English, because it's basically the same stuff we study, just in English. It's so obvious. As a language teacher myself, I pointed out that what is obvious for him might not be obvious for everyone. He ignored that and kept saying, but it's obvious stuff. And I went, for you? He seemed confused by my response. There's a lot more, but I'll leave it there for the sake of brevity. By the end of the date, I was actively trying to hide my yawns. I haven't seen him since the date because he went back to his hometown for vacation. I think he's coming back this week. I have no idea how to tell him I don't want to see him again. Could you help me with that? And then there's actually an update. So, thank you all for your advice. I wasn't sure how to word the message since we'd still have to see each other at the gym, and your suggestions really helped a lot. I texted him I've I'd have to decline the movie date he had suggested because I didn't think we were compatible, but that there wouldn't be any awkwardness between us at the gym. He replied, "Oh yeah, don't worry, it's all good," with a smiling face. However, 3 minutes later, he sent another text. Yeah, maybe I wasn't really thinking whether anything would come of it. If it ended up becoming something more, that'd have been great too, because I enjoy getting to know you very much. I felt like he was trying to make it clear that he wasn't that invested anyway, even though he was the one who asked me out and then suggested a second date. Anyway, it's done. That story is now over. So, at least she gave it a shot, guys, and went on this date with this guy and then kind of found out that he just was not who she thought he potentially was. And good on her and good on the commenters on giving her suggestions on how to politely decline his second date. But yeah, I mean, that's what dating is about, right? Finding people that you might be attracted to and then figuring out if you think you're compatible with them or not. So good on this poster for putting herself out there. Unfortunate that this guy wasn't doesn't seem like a great human in general. I mean, hasn't seen his 11-year-old son in months, and yeah, but who knows the whole backstory to that, but doesn't sound like an overall great guy. Anyways, let's go ahead and jump into our next story. Our next story is titled, I Thought My Girlfriend Was Hiding a Second Phone. The truth was somehow more embarrassing. For weeks, I kept hearing a phone ringing somewhere in our apartment. Not my phone, not my girlfriend's phone, a completely different ringtone. I'd search everywhere, but the sound would stop before I found it. Then it would happen again the next day. Sometimes from the bedroom, sometimes from the kitchen. Once, I swear it was coming from inside the couch. I started wondering if my girlfriend had a secret phone. I didn't want to accuse her, so I casually asked, Do you have another phone? She looked at me and said, No. The next day, the phone rang again. This time, I was able to find it. It was inside a box of old Christmas decorations. It wasn't my phone. It actually was a tiny, tiny singing Christmas ornament. The batteries were dying, so it would randomly play half a ringtone before stopping. I had spent 3 weeks investigating a secret relationship. The only thing cheating on me was a battery. That is the end of our story. That one is pretty funny. It's kind of funny. Short, quick story from my end about batteries and Christmas ornaments. My family has this not Christmas ornament, but it's like snowmen and they dance if you click a button. And we finally, I think, had to replace the batteries, but I swear it's been around since my childhood. I literally don't know how the batteries lasted as long as they did. Like, it lasted at least like 10 to 15 years before they had to be replaced. So I don't know if they're like Duracell or whatever they are, but shout out to that battery company for whoever made the batteries that were within that thing. But anyways, let's go ahead and get into our next story. Our next story is titled, I confirm this disturbing story with two people, and I still can't explain what happened that night. I'm the kind of person who doesn't believe in paranormal stuff. I usually look for a logical explanation first, but this is one of those stories that genuinely makes me question whether there are some scientific explanations behind this. A few years ago, my best friend was staying in a PG with three other girls. One of the roommates, let's call her Anaya, always seemed a little unusual. Almost every night between 1 and 3 a.m., Anaya would suddenly sit up in her bed and start talking. Everyone assumed it was sleep talking, and since it happened so often, they eventually stopped reacting to it. One day, while casually talking, Anaya mentioned that she had seen a small child running off on the ground outside the building late at night. Everyone found it creepy, but they brushed it off, thinking maybe she just imagined it. Then, one morning, around 5 a.m., all three roommates woke up because the room was filled with smoke. When they asked what happened, she casually said she had woken up early and decided to do puja. It was strange, but they let it go. Then came the final nail in the coffin. A few nights later, Anaya went to sleep around 10 p.m., like she always did. At around 1 a.m., instead of sitting upright and sleep talking, she slowly sat upright. She didn't say anything. Then she just smiled. My friend said it was one of the most disturbing smiles she had ever seen in her entire life. It looked unnaturally wide, almost like it didn't belong on a human face. Her eyes were completely red. It wasn't just one person's imagination or a nightmare. Both of them started crying in fear, panicking, and calling their parents because they genuinely had no idea what they were seeing, and she still kept staring at them with this disturbing smile. She continued to stare at them, and the moment they started making loud noises out of panic, her smile disappeared and she looked completely normal again, as if she had no idea why everyone was terrified, and on confronting her, she kept telling people that she did not know what she was doing. Neither of them felt safe that night in that room with Anaya, so they spent the rest of the night sitting in the basement of the building. When they came back in the morning, when they came back in the morning, Anaya was gone. Her cupboard was locked. My friend and her roommates packed their bags and shifted to another PG, which is why the mystery still remains. Also, it was later found out from the owner that her previous roommates also had left because of her strange behavior. I know this sounds like something straight out of a horror movie, but I'm genuinely trying to understand what happened. I don't believe in paranormal things, which is why the story bothers me so much. I'm posting this because I genuinely want opinions. That's the end of our story. That was a little creepy one. I don't know what to say. I didn't know what a PG was that they were talking about, but it looks like down in the comment section, it's like a hostel. So somewhere people stay, usually when they're traveling, it sounds like. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. Kind of a crazy story. Anyways, let's jump into another one. Our next story is titled, I thought my roommate was practicing magic at 3 a.m. The truth made me laugh harder than I should have. For an entire week, I'd wake up in the middle of the night to hear someone whispering in the living room. Not talking, whispering. Then I'd hear yes. A long pause. No. Another pause. Maybe. It sounded exactly like someone negotiating with a ghost. I asked my roommate about it the next morning. He looked at me dead in the eyes and said, I have no idea what you're talking about. The answer somehow made everything worse. The next night, the whispering came back. Curiosity finally won. I quietly opened my bedroom door and peeked into the living room. There he was, sitting cross legged on the floor, staring at absolutely nothing. My heart almost stopped. Then he raised one finger and whispered, Interesting. I was convinced I discovered some weird midnight ritual. I flicked on the lights. He jumped so hard he nearly hit the ceiling. What are you doing? I asked. He looked embarrassed. Then he held up a laser pointer. I blinked. What? He pointed toward the couch. Our orange cat was crouched behind a pillow like a tiny tiger. Apparently, my roommate had created an elaborate game. He'd move the laser dot around the room, then whisper fake commentary like he was narrating a nature documentary. The majestic orange predator approaches. What will he catch? This mysterious red bug. Nobody knows. I bursted out laughing. He sighed. I know it sounds ridiculous. Before I could answer, the cat launched 6 feet through the air, missed the dot completely, slid into the laundry basket, and somehow got stuck wearing one of my hoodies. My roommate looked at the cat, looked at me, and in the most serious voice imaginable said, Nature is beautiful. Now, every Friday night, we dim the lights, turn on the laser pointer, and narrate our cat's epic adventures like it's the biggest wildlife documentary on Earth. Honestly, I don't know who's having more fun anymore, the cat or the two grown adults providing live commentary. That story is now over. I liked that one. That was a good story. I feel like that would be incredibly creepy at first. Being like, what is my roommate doing out there? And then going out there and just saying, oh, he's playing with our cat with the laser pointer. That's a good one. Anyways, let's go ahead and hop into our next story. All right, guys, this isn't a story, but I was reading through a Reddit thread that was talking about what's like the biggest conspiracy theory that you believe in that you can't prove. And there are some really interesting ones as well as some really funny ones. So I wanted to use this more of a, instead of telling a story, just reading through a few of them while also letting you guys know that you should send the ones that you believe in the comments. I think that could be interesting. So I was just trying it here. But one of the funny ones is that when you lose a sock in the wash, it transforms into an extra Tupperware lid that doesn't fit anything you have. And honestly, I feel that one. Like I said, I'm just reading through a lot of these, trying to find another story at this time, and just kind of reading them, and they're kind of funny. There's a lot of ones that are about like aliens and things like that. Or I guess another one's Fruit of the Loom, how Fruit of the Loom, and also Chick-fil-A, how people thought Fruit of the Loom, Fruit Loops, and Chick-fil-A was spelled their whole life just to realize it was spelled a different way. I guess that's like the Mandela effect type deal. But there's a lot of that in there. I find these interesting. So if you ever want to read something interesting on Reddit, just go to r/theories and look for the thread about conspiracy theories that you believe in. But anyways, I'll quit this quick rant. I'll jump into another story here, guys. Our next story is titled, Am I in the wrong for wanting to end a friendship because my friend's husband is annoying? I, 31 female, have a friend, 30 female, that I've known for about 2.5 years now. So, not a super long time. We worked together and she ended up moving back to her home state. At the time, they were not married, but living together. She and I would hang out after work occasionally, got pretty close, and eventually we involved our significant others. My husband, 32 male, and hers, unsure of his age, late 20s, hit it off, and they began hanging out a lot separately, which was great since they have some things in common: sports, video games, etc. Their friendship is a pretty solid one, though. My husband is pretty chill, but my friend's now husband calls frequently and has initiated a lot of their plans. Since they moved back home, we have gone to visit them twice, and both visits have been pretty fun. Of course, I enjoy seeing my friend, but on both visits, I couldn't help but be incredibly annoyed by her husband. It makes me feel bad because he is super nice in group settings, but he just has an audacious personality. He's always so loud and can just be completely overbearing in lots of situations, especially towards my friend. He can be controlling toward her in a nice slash mean way. When he's telling her to do things and she's annoyed by it, he starts whispering to her and treating her like a child. Maybe the whispering is just because my husband and I are around. I don't know. He's the type of person that knows a lot of people because he has to be the biggest personality in the room, but doesn't have any true friends because he's odd. So he overcompensates by trying to seem like this overly sweet person in order to try to keep people in his circle. I've told my husband about these feelings, and he agrees that he's nice, but definitely has some weirdness going on. We are both pretty easygoing, but put up with it the last couple of visits, but I just don't think I can do this all the time in the future. Her husband is super obsessed with mine as well, and he gives off this friends forever vibe towards him. Would we be better off just trying to schedule girls slash guys trips only with them? Or just let the friendship go completely? It seems to us like they expect us to visit them yearly as well. It's a little easier to deal with since we don't live in the same state anymore. At best, I would only have to see them once a year, and if my husband wanted to hang with him more, he could. I definitely don't think telling her is the best choice since they are recently married. I also lean towards slowly ghosting them over time, but her husband seems to be an emotional person, and even though we are all adults, I kind of hate to think how he would react. I just don't want to live a life untrue to my feelings and remain in situations that I'm uncomfortable in. Let me know if I'm being crazy or if I'm in the wrong. That story is now over. Okay, I don't think she's necessarily in the wrong. I don't know about you guys. I don't know what the best way to go about this is, though. Because, in my opinion, once someone is married to someone, they are a couple, obviously, and they are like one. So, hating the other is kind of tough. I don't know. The first thought that comes to my head is having planned like one on ones, like you and her, and then hopefully your husband can pick up the slack and hang out with him. That's just kind of my first thought. I don't know about you guys, what you guys think. Some of the comments here are kind of mixed, saying that you're not forced to be in a relationship with them at all, or, the husband, while others say friendships coming to an end is a part of life and, you know, people pleasing is a health hazard. So, basically move on from both of them. So this one's kind of a toughie. I don't know. What do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments. Alrighty, guys. I think that is going to do it for me today. I apologize for being a little sparse in how many videos I've been getting out recently. Just been super, super busy with work, my personal life, as well as going on some vacations. I just went on the vacation to the beach, and also in a few weeks, I'm going to Costa Rica. So it'll be pretty cool. I'm excited. I'll try to have some videos booted up and ready to go before we leave in a couple of weeks. So yeah, hopefully we'll be getting kind of back on a every other day post, like we had in previous weeks. But again, just wanted to say, I appreciate you guys, especially if you've listened this far. I really appreciate your support. Thank you so much for watching my videos. It really does mean the world to me. If there's any way that I can improve these videos for you, please feel free to let me know down in the comment section below. If you have a story of your own, or maybe just a story that you found online that you think would be an interesting read, feel free to send it to the email down in the description below. Alrighty, guys. Like I said, I think that's it from me. I appreciate you guys. Love you guys. We'll talk soon. All right. All right. Peace.